Hi, I'm Genevieve Pantin, and I'm a therapist, anthropologist, the founder of Vive Living, and the author of A Lioness Heart, Find Your Purpose, Find Your Path, soon set for its global release. Many years ago, I heard this message by Pablo Picasso. The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. I later heard something similar from an inspirational human, Deepak Chopra, when he said to me, "Be curious, find your gift, and give it away." Whilst the messages you hear may be inspirational and important, and you may feel humbled by them, but the words that really ignite your heart and inspire action are the messages you repeat to yourself. The objective of this talk is to take you on a journey through the use of stories and exercises to inspire you to be in the moment and to identify your gift and opportunities so you too can find your heart and the spirit to give it away. I want to share with you first how I found my purpose. I've had the privilege to walk through the lives of many special people, and I've had the fortune of discovering some of my gifts early in life. Mine is listening and being able to create a safe space for growth. This was a skill that came to play when I worked with Sudanese ex-child soldiers in Kenya and marginalised communities around London. When my gift was given away, I was always ready to receive life's greatest rewards, and that was the gift of being able to share my life with truly amazing and inspirational individuals. There are many challenges and opportunities that come to us in life. Back in the early turn of the century, I met one such special boy. His name was Hezeki. At this time, I had designed and secured funding from the local authority of Kensington and Chelsea to deliver 3 very inclusive development programs at this urban stables in Ladbroke, London. One for youth at risk, introducing young people from challenged communities such as Grenfell to working with horses, another for children with autism, and a third, a social inclusion program, which introduced this privileged sport to young children of the area who would then be able to participate in a pony club. I had found my way to join my 2 passions, working with young people and working with horses. One Sunday, this little boy turned up and stared at me over the stable door. I asked his name, but there was no response. I beckoned to him and invited him to join me to groom the horse that I was about to ride. He joined me. I could feel his little energy. It was strong and complex, yet fragile and reactive. The day ended beautifully. He had learned to groom a number of ponies, saddle one, and I gave him his first riding lesson. Hezeki returned every Sunday and would stay by my side and would help me to groom and to prepare the ponies in silence, with a riding lesson at the end. By chance, I discovered that he spoke French when he responded to me when I was speaking to a horse in French. Don't ask why, but that's what I do. I then decided to connect with the local social workers and started to ask around about Hezeki, as he would be with me from every Sunday, often from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Then he would just walk off and disappear. I discovered from one social worker that Hezeki was a Tutsi boy, and at the age of 5, he had witnessed his entire family massacred and hid under their bodies to survive. He then walked for days and days to the border and on his own, and to be picked up finally by the UN services, and was later relocated to London. He was placed in a foster home, and it seems that he would leave this home every Sunday and walk to what may have been like the end of his world to find this urban oasis of the stables where I was every Sunday. Hezeki is a clear demonstration of the strength of the human spirit. He found a resource, and the majestic horses were brought to his path to help to heal his soul, and he had come to mine to inspire my onward journey. And he touched my soul like no other. I then connected with a doctor who had started a sustainable development project using the amaranth plant as an alternative to corn in a rural area of Nakuru, Kenya. And he asked me to join in the development of a further sustainable development project. I immediately envisaged children learning to work with horses and then taking visiting tourists to their project land where they can learn to build a traditional home on the land, but arriving on the project land on horseback. They can pay for this experience, and the payment would go into a community chest, which would then be used to fund the education of the teenagers in the village. The project that I envisaged did happen. 2 months later, I was on my first flight to Nairobi, Kenya, and on the very long drive to Nakuru. The project enjoyed a lot of successes, but there were also a lot of setbacks. The water source had been closed off, and therefore the donated horses were unable to attain water to be part of the experience in the village. However, we learned to roll with the punches, and we redesigned an exchange program with the local game park where young people from the village were trained there to work with horses and would then take tourists on foot for the experience. I then went on to work with the rehabilitation of ex-child soldiers, where we created a safe space for young men who had been forced to partake in some of the most abhorrent acts to heal, using the power of therapy and nature. This is how I found my purpose. So we'll first start by doing an internal review. What is the biggest challenge you've overcome in your life? Please take pen to paper to write this, and stay with me. What are the skills, tools, and resources that you use to overcome this challenge? And out of this experience, can you think, what is your gift? And let's do an external review. I would like to share with you the story of a woman who used her gift to overcome great difficulties. This is the story of Sophia. The journey of a therapist means you're always a student, and I've learned a lot about strength and determination from my clients. Sophia was my client for over 2 years, and she touched my soul and inspired me deeply. Sophia lived under constant threat as she was subject to mental, physical, and sexual abuse at the hands of her husband. And she also lived a life where she was bound by family tradition and status quo. Amid the marital abuse were her 2 children, who witnessed the most awful attacks weekly and during really awful periods daily. Sophia spent her life conforming to what her parents expected of her, and then to the expectations and demands of her abusive husband. She could not understand how she got to be 43 and never lived her own life, but lived satisfying the needs of others, denying herself a voice and her true strength. She once shared with me that her realization that she had never had the opportunity to speak her truth, and that she had never made a choice for herself, as all her important life decisions were made by her parents and then her husband. She did not invest in herself. However, there was something deeply profound about Sophia. I could see there was something in her that showed her as someone who wanted to live and to find her space in the world. She came to me for online sessions after she had been given my details by a nurse at the hospital where she was treated for her injuries from an attack by her husband. In the beginning, she seemed to be in crisis, and therefore we met twice a week. Sophia did not have access to a bank account to pay me, so we discussed this openly, and I assured her that I would work with her as long as she was able to meet me, and I did so at no cost. She was always on time, and I could tell our sessions meant a lot to her. Every time we met, I could also feel the strength that she was gaining, despite her daily nightmare of mental and physical threats. When our sessions started, she was overwhelmed by her situation and by life in general, and she did not see the point of living. She would share with me the horrors she endured at the hands of her husband, the terrors her children had to witness, and the helplessness and shame she felt. She even thought that she deserved some of the beatings. She shared that she felt like a bad mother, and she was not able to stand up to her abusive husband in front of her children. Despite this overpowering amount of negativity, I saw a spark of strength in our sessions, As she often shared, she would not want her daughter to ever go through this, and that she would never want to imagine her son as a man capable of inflicting pain, as her husband did. And in this I felt we were touching her core values. By seeing this in her heart, she was able to create a light of hope that there must be a way to change her situation. I felt that Sophia knew she had the strength to break free. She just needed to tap into the power. However, it would take letting go of some things to gain hold of a new way of life. Shame is the worst of human emotions to work with, and Sophia carried with her a lot of shame, which translated into feelings of helplessness and guilt. She was ashamed that she was not the woman who could calm her husband. She was ashamed that she allowed herself to be treated like this in front of her children. She was ashamed that her parents never supported her, and each time she told them what had happened, they marched her back into the situation with her husband and warned her of the shame it would bring on the family if she left. For Sophia, there was shame in staying and shame in leaving, and for this reason, she was in an incredibly tight bind. There was also the shame that her family did not want her and her children, and that her mother and father chose for them to stay in a life of torment over supporting her to leave an abusive home. Her parents will not give her her sanctuary, and this left Sophia with feelings of isolation, loneliness and despair. Feelings she acknowledged she never wanted her children to experience if she could help it. She found her strength the night her life changed. Before she came to me was the night she decided to say no to her husband's demands. Like she had done in the past, and on this occasion there seemed to be no end to his rage. He attacked her in every way possible and then threw her out on the front door and locked her outside. Bloodied and hurt in her nightgown, she staggered away, her feet bare, and with both her eyes swollen, she walked a distance and stopped a passing car, not knowing what her fate would be entering a car in the South London area of Streatham with a stranger. But at this point, nothing else could be done to her. Fortunately, the stranger kindly took her to the hospital, where she was attended to by two very kind, patient and empathetic nurses who wanted to inform the police, but heeded her plea not to, and in turn gave her information about local safe houses and my telephone number. Sitting on her hospital bed, knowing she had left her kids in the house with her husband, she felt it. It was clear. It was strong. She was at her lowest, but in a mystifying twist, she also now felt at her strongest. She was not only going to survive this, but she was going to find a way to live and to forge a new life for her children and herself. In her head, her parents' wishes no longer mattered. Her family's name was no longer of important value, and the shame of being divorced or separated seemed to fall off of her like chains being cut and dropping to the ground. She sat there on her hospital bed in silence and considered her resources. They were limited, but she did have resources. She had her legs and her instinct to live again for herself and her children. She had my telephone number, and most importantly, she had purpose. She returned home and was subjected to more abuse, but this time it was not going to hurt her the way it always did. She had a plan. She was going to make herself strong to be the best human she could be. I was the first call she made the moment she was on her own, and it seemed I turned out to be the one of the lifelines she was looking for at this time. She needed someone to validate her in this moment, someone to listen to her, to show her empathy and kindness, like the nurses did, and like the driver who took her to the hospital did. And this was the wind of change she needed to feel her life could also change. She needed to know that she had the power to shift her circumstances for herself and her children. She woke at 5 a.m. every day before her husband awoke, and she walked. As time passed, her strength grew, and her walks turned into morning runs. I also recommended she do a short sequence of yoga poses every morning, a sequence I called Find Your Warrior Strength, Vinyasa. The highlight postures are Warrior 1, Warrior 2, and Peaceful Warrior, performed with arms outstretched, hips neutral, and feet planted firmly on the ground, giving value to the strength in the limbs and hips. She learned to meditate and use the power of visualization. Sophia would imagine herself on her own in her happy place, a space she created in her mind. She would take herself there whenever the mental or physical abuse started. She even made healthier eating choices, and amid the chaos, she created balance in her life. She really, for the first time, connected with the reality that she had choices. They weren't easy ones, and they would challenge all the positions that left her stuck and living life as she knew it. She also started to save some of her housekeeping money and opened a secret bank account where she created a little stash. She was a brilliant and creative cook, and she knew there was a way for her to use this talent as a resource. She came up with the idea to make a warm baked pastry with a spicy potato or egg filling. She would slice the pastry-filled pie into generous slices. Not having had much contact with anyone else for a number of years, she did not have anyone to ask for help, as her husband had ended all of her childhood friendships. As this thought was going through her head, she realized how isolated she had become. Then she took a deep breath and said, "Well, I also have the chance now to make a lot of new and valued friendships." It dawned on her that she had recently encountered a cluster of kind people who had seen her in her most vulnerable state, and they were the nurses at the hospital who had treated her wounds that day. Doubts started to set in, like what if they were not on the shift or working nighttime, or what if they did not want to see her, or what if it was a stupid idea. Then a wave came over her, and stillness and calm prevailed, and Sophia repeated to herself, "I can do this." She baked the best batch of goods she had ever baked in her life and headed off to the hospital. An hour before it was time to collect her kids from school, she saw Nurse Judy, one of the two who had attended to her that day, whisk past. She asked reception if she could have a word with Nurse Judy. Sophia was again vulnerable and honest with the empathetic nurse, who, after tasting one of Sophia's pies, shared that it was really delicious, but the hospital protocol would not allow them to be sold there. Sophia felt immediately deflated, but Nurse Judy, with a twinkle in her eye, shared that her husband worked as the head of a construction company that happened to be very close to her home, and a regular supply of something hot and tasty at the same time every day could be a big hit. Sophia got her break and took a sample of her best baked goods to the address given to her by Nurse Judy. They were a massive hit, and she planned a tight baking schedule where she used goods from her housekeeping and became an extremely efficient and strategic baker. She was making a great margin and was able to put it all away into her secret bank account. We had some sessions in between these times, and Sophia shared with me one day that she found her choice, and that was to live. And she chose to use her gifts and resources to be able to form a new life. This new strength helped her to build a different value system that tapped into her core values, one that served her and her children. Sophia suffered one final huge attack, but at this stage she knew where to go. Her newfound strength helped her to accept that she had to leave this life. Following day, once her husband was at work, she took her son and daughter to a safe house for abused women. She had never felt so at peace and so free. It was the start of a new beginning, and she was going to rise, and he was not going to touch her and her children again. She had her children, her dignity, her choices, and she knew she had purpose. With hard work, commitment, courage, and determination, she considered what her gift was. The one thing she was able to do well was to bake, and she turned that into her path to a new life and one of purpose. Sophia is now a divorced mother who works as an advocate for women who experience abuse and also runs a successful catering company. With her connection to the safe houses, she employs women who are trying to escape domestic violence and gives them the chance to get on their own 2 feet. She now lives knowing that she deserves better, and she's a mother deserving of the respect and admiration of her children. She found her warrior strength, then she found her gift, and she gave it away. What would someone you trust say is your superpower? What would the closest people you know consider to be your gift? The 50 trillion climate industry creates a unique opportunity to find success in your purpose. There is this huge global opportunity that has opened up, and climate is one such opportunity. We are all here to inspire the hero in each other, and this is a time to get your purpose aligned on this path of sustainability. What can you do to incorporate your purpose with the current opportunity? During this period of great realization, where we have been given the opportunity to take stock of the world around, COVID-19 related lockdowns around the world saw a lot of us going back to basics. A number of industries have suffered and currently need to reconsider their organizational values. It is a time for us all to reconsider our values. The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. Align yourself with your cause today and let curiosity, empathy, and determination guide you to your path to purpose. Thank you.